There's a deeply ingrained belief going through our culture that forgiveness is the grand finale of healing. We hold that if you can just forgive what happened, if you can muster enough compassion, rise above the pain, and soften your judgment, then freedom will follow. Many of us committed ourselves to that ideal. We tried to be the bigger person. We tried to release resentment. We tried to make peace for memories that still carried heat. For a while, we even believed it was working. But then something strange happened. The emotional patterns didn't disappear. The tension didn't dissolve. Certain memories still had the power to tighten your chest or quicken your and breath. You reacted to present situations with emotions that clearly belonged to the past. And inevitably, you asked yourself, how is this still affecting me? I forgave this. That question isn't a sign of failure. It's a doorway into a deeper truth. Forgiveness changes how you think about the past, but it doesn't change how the past lives inside your system. Forgiveness and release are not the same process, and treating them as if they are leaves you stuck in cycles that you can't explain.
Mhm. When you study most teachings on forgiveness, you notice something interesting. Nearly all of them are cognitive or emotional. You're encouraged to reinterpret the story, see the other person's motives, or understand what led them to the situation. You're told to adopt a higher perspective, to rise into compassion, to let the story soften. And while all of that can be meaningful, none of it addresses one simple truth. The body keeps the energetic imprint, even when the mind lets go of the narrative. Your mind might have processed the lesson, but your nervous system might still be bracing. Your heart may have softened, but your energy field still carries the imprint. That imprint, that subtle but persistent residue, is what I call vibrational residue. It's the emotional echo of what happened. It doesn't shout, it just hums along. And it influences how you show up in relationships, how you respond under stress, and what you expect from the world around you. Forgiveness can quiet the story, but residue continues shaping your behavior from underneath.
Let's talk about the mechanics behind that residue, because once you understand the mechanics, the entire healing journey becomes clearer. Imagine every emotionally intense experience creating a kind of tether between the version of you who lived that moment and the version of you sitting here today. The stronger the emotional impact, the stronger the tether becomes. You can grow, evolve, learn, and forgive, yet still feel pulled into the emotional gravity of that earlier moment. Not because you're broken, because the tether is still active. In quantum physics, we call this entanglement. When two points interact intensely, they remain connected even when separated by time or distance. Emotional entanglement works the same way. You might not unconsciously think about the past, but energetically, you're still in dialogue with it. And that's why your system reacts as if the original moment is happening again whenever something in the present brushes against that tether. This is not emotional weakness, it's physics applied to consciousness. And once you see that, you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, where am I entangled?
Mhm. One of the most transformative shifts happen when you stop seeing your triggers as proof that you're not healed and start seeing them as messengers. Triggers aren't evidence of failure, they're evidence of entanglement. They show up, they show you exactly where your system is still carrying energy from the past. In my work, I've seen people mistake ingrained emotional habits for personality traits. Overthinking, conflict avoidance, emotional shutdown, hypervigilance, people pleasing. None of those were who they really were. They were survival responses that had become automatic. Old emotional blueprints, still running, still trying to protect. When people realize this, you can almost see their posture change. The shame begins to melt. They stop attacking themselves for being too sensitive or too reactive. They stop demanding that they just get over it. They recognize that their system wasn't sabotaging them, it was remembering for them. And when you understand that your system is remembering rather than misbehaving, you finally stop fighting yourself and begin working with yourself.
That leads us directly to the heart of the transformation, the active release protocol. This protocol is what takes you beyond forgiveness. It doesn't ask you to justify the past or the meaning in what happened. It doesn't require you to spiritually reframe anything. Those steps can be helpful, but they are optional. The active release protocol works at the level of energetic architecture. Think again of that cord connecting you to a past moment where something in you froze. Your expression, your trust, your joy, your sense of safety. Forgiveness can help you emotionally reinterpret that moment, but it doesn't dissolve the cord. The cord remains until you consciously disengage from it. The purpose of the protocol is simple: retrieve your energy, dissolve the cord, and close the open timeline so it no longer spills into your present.
Let's walk through the inner mechanism of this protocol together. So, this isn't about forcing a state, it's about letting what's already there become visible. So, sit or lie in a way that feels supportive. Let your breath slow, not by control, but by permission. And now bring your awareness inward. You're not chasing a memory, you're looking for a sensation, a tightness, a heaviness, a knot, a flutter. That sensation is the doorway because the body stores what the mind cannot. Once you locate it, rest your awareness there. No judgment, no analysis, just presence. Now imagine a cord extending from that point in your body backward into the past. You don't need to know what moment it connects to. Your subconscious already does. And with every inhale, imagine drawing your energy back along the cord. Your voice, your confidence, your innocence, your clarity, your right to exist without apology. Feel that energy returning to your body. With every exhale, imagine the cord thinning, weakening, dissolving. You're not severing it. Severing implies something remains. You are unmaking it as though the cord were made of mist and your breath is the sunlight dissolving it. Now notice any changes, maybe a spontaneous sigh, a shift in posture, a change in temperature, an emotional wave, or simply stillness. All of these are signs that the system is reorganizing around the absence of that tether. At the end, you might offer a quiet statement inward. That moment no longer holds my energy. I am here now. You're not denying what happened. You're ending its ability to keep you energetically anchored there.
What follows is what I call the vibrational reset. And the beauty of this reset is that it doesn't depend on constant effort. You don't have to hold it together. You don't have to micromanage every thought. When density leaves, your frequency rises on its own. You begin noting subtle shifts. Your reactions are less sharp. Your thoughts feel less frantic. You stop rehearsing worst case scenarios by default. You don't feel the same compulsion to over explain, over apologize, or over function in order to feel safe. Then the bigger shifts appear. You start making different choices. You say no where you once said yes, out of fear. You say yes where you once would have hesitated out of self doubt. New people enter your life who mirror your clarity instead of your wounds. Old dynamics fall away, not because you force them to, but because you no longer are vibrationally available for them. Your reality begins reorganizing itself because the signal you're broadcasting into the field has changed. It's not that life suddenly becomes perfect. It's that you're no longer living through the filter of an old story.
Mm. Alongside that reset is an identity shift that is often quiet but profound. When you're no longer entangled with old versions of yourself, you stop making choices on their behalf. You stop trying to protect the you who was abandoned, betrayed, dismissed, or shamed. That part of you finally stopped driving the car. I've watched people rediscover aspects of themselves they thought were gone forever. Their humor returns, their creativity wakes up, their capacity to inhabit their own life with a kind of relaxed authority that doesn't need to perform. They no longer feel like they're constantly managing impressions or scanning for danger. Instead, they're actually present, not performing presence, living it. And this is where many people say, this feels like me, not the version who survived what happened, but the version who exists beyond it. That's the real you speaking, not the trauma identity, not the survival mask, but the consciousness underneath it all.
Let's explore what that looks like to live from that place in practical terms, because this isn't meant to stay theoretical. After release, your system will still occasionally echo the past. Old reflexes rise up, especially under stress. The difference now is that you don't automatically merge with them. When a familiar reaction appears, you pause and ask, is this actually about this moment, or is this an echo from another time? If it's current, you respond as your present self with the tools, awareness, and boundaries that you now have. If it's an echo, you recognize it as residue, not reality. That recognition alone dissolves a huge amount of the charge. Over time, you go from being inside your patterns to being aware of them from the outside. And from that vantage point, you can choose. That's the heart of sovereignty. The absence of not the absence of triggers, but the presence of choice in the face of them. You're no longer dragged backwards by your history every time something brushes against an old wound. You feel the tug, you name it, and you remain there.
As this awareness stabilizes, your relationship with the future changes. Freedom is not just the absence of hurt, it is the presence of possibility. When entanglements dissolve, you stop designing your life around avoidance. You no longer choose jobs, relationships, or creative paths primarily to stay safe from old pain. You stop pre rejecting yourself so no one else can. You stop shrinking your desires so they don't risk being disappointed. Instead, you begin orientating towards what you actually want, not what you're trying to avoid. You allow yourself to want deeper connections, more aligned work, more spaciousness, more joy. And you move towards those desires without the constant inner negotiation that used to say, be careful, remember what happened last time? The past is no longer sitting at the table every time you consider a new path. You're no longer asking your wounds for permission to live.
So let's bring this to its essence. Freedom isn't the absence of a story about the past. It's the absence of entanglement with it. It's the ability to respond from whom you are now instead of who you had to be then. You don't have to settle for being at peace with what happened if your body is still carrying its imprint. Peace is valuable, but it's not the final destination. The final destination is reclamation, reclaiming the energy that you've left behind in those frozen moments, reclaiming the self trust that was shaken, reclaiming the power that you handed over just to feel safe enough to stay. Your past absolutely influenced you. It shaped your preference, your boundaries, your sensitivities. But shaping is not the same as defining. The moment you realize that you stop letting your history function as your identity, and through the active release process, you draw a line not to deny what happened, but to say, this is where its authorship ends. Let that land for a moment, because this is where theory becomes lived reality. Think about the areas of your life that you still feel smaller than you know yourself to be, the conversations you avoid, the opportunities you talk yourself out of, the boundaries you know you need but struggle to hold. Behind each of those is usually an old moment of impact, an old decision that your younger self made about what was safe, what was possible, and what was allowed. When you engage in active release, you're not just healing trauma in the abstract, you're updating those old decisions. You're saying to your system, we are not there anymore. We are not that person anymore. We have more resources now. We can choose differently. And when your body believes that, your life begins to reflect it in very practical, tangible ways.
And here is what I want you to really feel as we close. Freedom is not distant, it is not conditional, it is not waiting for you at the end of some perfect healing journey where you'll never get triggered again. Freedom becomes available the moment you stop negotiating with the past and start reclaiming yourself from it. You are allowed to stop carrying stories that were never yours to hold. You're allowed to step out of roles where you never consciously agreed to play. You're allowed to build a future that reflects your truth rather than your trauma. You are allowed to move through your life without constantly preparing to be hurt the way you were before. You become free when your energy returns to your body, when your voice returns to your field, when your future returns to your authorship. You become free when you stop living as the echo and start living as the origin. And you become free the moment you decide that the past no longer gets to set the tone for your present. You're not just releasing the memory, you are releasing an identity that formed around surviving that memory. And in doing so, you're stepping into the identity that was always waiting beneath there, the one designed not just to endure, but to live, create, love, and choose. So, as you move forward from this conversation, don't measure your progress by how perfectly you perform or how rarely you feel triggered. Measure it by how willing you are to notice when an old pattern rises, to pause instead of collapse, to breathe and reclaim rather than abandon yourself. Measure it by the moments you choose presence over autopilot and small aligned actions over familiar self betrayal. That is what integration looks like. If there's one invitation I want to leave with you, it's this: treat yourself as someone who is becoming free, not as someone who is trying to earn it. Speak to yourself as the one who is leading you out, not the one who kept you stuck. You don't need permission from the past or from some future healed version of you. You can begin now, in this breath, in this choice, in this willingness to release what your system is fully ready to let go of.
Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought. Conversations like this aren't just ideas to listen to, they're catalysts. They're invitations to step into a version of yourself that remembers its power, its clarity, and its authorship. And if this exploration resonated with you, if it helped you see your inner world a little differently, I'd love for you to stay connected as we continue diving deeper into this work. So if you haven't already, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs, and describe so you don't miss what comes next. And of course, ring the bell, because the insights that move you forward often arrive after the exact moment that you are ready for them. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.